All right, welcome everyone, and welcome to the last session of day one. And I was just at Coffee and Bagel just now and saw some folks there participating. So thanks for joining Coffee and Bagel. And we randomly selected one participant as a winner, and with the we're prizing $50 Amazon gift card. And I was just told that the winner from the last Coffee and Bagel session that we just closed is Alina Henderson from Virginia Housing. So congratulations, Alina. You'll be receiving an email from us in a few minutes with the $50 gift card. And we'll list all three winners from Coffee and Bagel today, and that'll be displayed on the conference platform main page. So when you log back in tomorrow for day two of the conference at 11 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow morning, you'll be able to see all the three winners from Coffee and Bagel from day one. And we encourage you to continue participating throughout the conference tomorrow as well. The session you just joined is titled ProLinkHFA All Things Reporting, and it'll be conducted by Kelly Encinias. As a reminder, you're on track one ProLinkHFA track. And before we start the session, I'd like to take a few minutes to cover some housekeeping items. The first, on the right side of your screen, you have access to the chat feature. In order to use it, you first have to hit the join button. After that, you'll see little red dots notifying you of any messages from other attendees. Please feel free to post any questions or comments throughout the session in the chat, and we'll try to provide responses in real time or follow up individually after the session. And please note that your posts are visible to all other attendees. The other feature on the right side of your screen is polls. So throughout the session, 3 poll questions will be displayed one by one. And when you provide your response each time, you'll be able to see the poll result in real time. So we encourage you to participate. In the last slide, this is where you can download a copy of PowerPoint on the session page in the Attendee Hub. So you can download this file anytime before, during, or after Kelly's session. So now, without further ado, we'll begin the session. So Kelly, you can share your screen at this point, and please take it away.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Ryan, confirm for me that you can see my screen, okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. We're ready to roll. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining today. As some of you might recognize, I want to take just a minute and talk kind of about this session and how it came to be. As some of you might recognize, this is a new session this year, new content. As we were, talking about what we were going to do this year at Tech Live, we kind of recognized that we maybe haven't ever covered reporting, and if we have, it's been quite a long time. So it felt like it was time to revisit reporting and take a look at some of the new items that we have, some of the existing items that we have, like for NCSHA reporting that we maybe haven't talked about in a while, and then of course, income and rent limits reports. So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at all things reporting in ProLinkHFA. So we're going to start out with dashboards. I just want to make a note for everybody that all of the screens that I am going to show you live today, because I'll break out of this slide deck and we'll go live in the demo environment that I have. But all the screens and the talking points that I am going to show you and discuss today are included in the slide deck. So, grab that, take notes if you need to, but it'll be there for reference. So I'm going to go ahead and break out of the slide deck right now. And as you can see, I am positioned here. I'm in my production demonstration environment for ProLinkHFA. And I'm positioned at the executive overview. So again, dashboards are new in the system here in the last, couple quarters. So in this main panel, you can see there's a dashboards folder there now, and we just have the executive overview available for you there. So we'll go through some of the detail here, but kind of history around how did we figure out what to do for a dashboard? Where did this thing come from? Why did we do, an executive overview dashboard? Well, what we did, since this is kind of our first foray into true dashboards, what we did was we took our existing executive summary. So if I click into that executive summary, you can see what that looks like. We took this existing screen view and really turned it into a dashboard. Okay, so this is our first example that we're looking at. I do want to reach out and appeal to everyone. If you have ideas, wants, needs, wish list items that you would like to see in a dashboard presentation like this, please reach out and give us those ideas. We want to build more dashboards, but we want to hear from you about what you want to see and what would be meaningful and useful for you. Okay. So let's talk through what we're looking at here in this first executive overview dashboard. So you can see at the top that we have a handful of tabs here: development, deals by stage, portfolio, grants. That's more applicable to New York State, and then tax credit allocation. So as we look at each one of these tabs together today, we'll talk about what we're looking at, what you can do, what's here, what is this data. Before we kind of dig into each individual tab, let's talk about some of the other kind of controls that are available here for you on each one of these tabs. So you'll notice some of these tabs are going to have this controls area, which is going to offer to you the ability to filter the view that you're looking at. Now, not every tab offers a filter, only some of them where it's applicable. You can see here on the development tab, we can filter this data by fiscal year. So as a default, when I come in, my selection is all years. So I can deselect all, and then I can, kind of scoot down and look at later years and things of that nature. Okay, so you can see that data changing as I'm changing those filter selections. So I can even deselect 2020 and I see those numbers change. Now, if I want to hide this control or filtering area, I can click this arrow at the far right and kind of slide that back up. And then I can click the arrow to slide that back down. I can use, you can see there's kind of a vertical ellipsis, which I don't know that I see that too often. Interesting. We can do a reset. That's going to set us back to that default selection in the fiscal year of all. I can go in then again and choose, another year. And then if I choose that ellipsis again, I can do a refresh just to refresh that data. Okay. Another couple of items that are available. So, within this actual information area where you can see, I can scroll a little bit, each of these items are what we call cards. And so I can expand one of those cards and contract it. Maybe not as useful in that total unit count, but when I'm looking at one or other of these graphs, I can expand that and get a little deeper, better view of the detail that I see there in that given graph. And then, of course, I can collapse that and return to that initial presentation. I do also have the vertical ellipsis here on each card, which allows me to export the card to CSV. Now, this export right now, it's a little bit slim. I'm going to show it to you. It's just giving us a tiny detail about what is presented within those graphs right now. This is something that we'll explore in the future, providing more of the detail behind what powers those actual graphs that you see. But that is what you're seeing today. Okay. So I can close that Excel. So again, each one of these cards on each of these tabs offers the expand and collapse, and then of course that export function. Within each of the graph areas, you're also going to see as I hover over portions of the graph, I get more of the detail about what that portion is that I'm looking at. So if I collapse that one, you can see as I hover over in this bar graph, I see that actual number, right? So that's units by type. That type is new construction, and I'm looking at 1,025 units right there, okay? So again, each of those graphs that are presented on each of the tabs are gonna offer that hover over functionality, okay? So let's talk a little bit about what we're really seeing here within our development tab. So we're looking at, in this upper card, our total units for our fiscal year 2019. Okay, so remember, whatever year or years that we're filtered to, that's kind of what's driving the data population that we're seeing here. Okay. So then we're looking at 21 deals. So 4,400 units across those 21 deals in the fiscal year 2019. Okay. And remember, I'm in a demonstration environment here. So, you know, the numbers are going to be somewhat realistic, but you know, they're certainly not going to match, you know, what any particular agency is exactly doing. So just keep that in mind. So then as we look down to these lower cards that we're seeing, you know, on the left here, the bar graph, total units by deal type. That's kind of digging a little more detail into that 4,400 units. So now we're looking at those 4,400 units broken out by deal type, right? So we see acquisition and construction financing, new deals, new construction, restructure. So remember that as you look at this overview within your own production or UAT environment, you know, not only are the numbers of units going to be yours, but also the deal types that are displayed here are going to be yours as well. Okay. So, you know, you may not have a deal type that consists of acquisition and construction financing. You know, that may not be your nomenclature. But so know that as you look in your own environments, you know, some of your labeling and whatnot can be a little bit different than what I have in my demonstration environment. Okay. So at the left here, again, we're looking at 21 deals as a total, again, for the year 2019. So then in the graph area, the pie chart, we're looking at the number of deals by deal type. Okay. So we're taking that 21 deals and we're breaking it out again by deal type, right? So you know, we can see 9, like the most deals that we're doing have a deal type of new deal. That's 43%. Second in line is new construction. We've got 8 deals in that category at 38% and so on. Okay. So we kind of get a feeling of what we're looking at and what's available here on this development tab. Okay. So next, let's take a look at our deals by stage tab. So you'll notice that deals by stage doesn't currently offer a filtering mechanism. So as we're looking at total units here and then total deals, this is overall time. So this is one of the areas where we would want to hear input from you. I would suspect that it might be more useful to have that fiscal year filter applied here as well, to look at, you know, so that you'd be looking at your total units by stage by a certain year or years that you would select. But again, this is input and feedback that we want to hear from you all. So please, if you have a feeling about this, pop it right into the chat. Let us know. Or, send us direct email, whatever's more comfortable to you. Okay. But so let's look at the detail of what we're looking at here, deals by stage. So again, same concept, right? I've got my total units card, if you will, at 178 and some change. So then in this bar chart below, we're taking that 178 units and we're breaking that down by stage. Okay. So, what's that placed in service, closing, and so on across all our different stages. And again, remember, especially as we get into some of these kind of sliver sized bars here, like what's in rate lock? Okay, it's 843. That's what that number really is. Okay, so have that hover over again. So let's take a look now at these cards here on the right. So total deals, 2.4 roughly. So then in our lower left card, we're looking at, of those 2,300 or so deals over time, what stage are those in? So, by and large, as we would expect to see when we're looking over all time, the majority of those deals are in dispersing. Likely, we would hope that status would be fully dispersed, right? Because, deals that are 26 years old, hopefully are done dispersing, or else we might have other problems going on. I'm just saying. So again, you get that hover over even in that pie chart. So you can kind of look at some of those smaller slices and see the detail, the percentage in those as well. Okay. And note as well that with the pie chart, we do have that legend there to the right of the pie chart that tells you kind of what those colors mean across those pie charts. Okay. Okay, let's hop into now our portfolio tab. So when we look at our portfolio tab, what we're looking at or thinking about here is our portfolio properties. Okay, so again, we don't have that fiscal year filter here available on this portfolio or portfolio properties tab. However, it's probably not applicable for our portfolio properties, right? Because this is, all our active properties that are in monitoring. Okay, so, no filter included there. However, again, we'd love to hear from you if there's other filtering that you'd like to see, across these different tabs in these different cards. Okay, so, again, drop that in the chat, send us an email, whatever's easiest for you. We want to hear from you. Okay, so let's take a look here at the detail and what we're looking at. So this upper left card, we're looking again at this concept of total units, right? So this is total units in monitoring, 122,000 and some change. So then we look to the bar graph below, and of those 122 units, which of those units are in what process type. Okay, so across all of those units, what do our numbers look like across our different process types? Okay, so now remember, that's a lot of data, right? So you've got that hover so that you can really see that detail. I want to remind you that we process type, that is a pick list that's available on your portfolio property. And that's a pick list that is what we call non-system, or that's available to you, to fill with your own process types for your own agency. So again, what you might see here in my demonstration environment could vary greatly from what you might see in your own production environment. And that's because we might have very, very different process types in our process type pick list. Okay, just want to point that out to everybody. So as we look to the left here, we look at our total properties card, and we're at just about 1,500 total properties, again, active properties that we're monitoring. So then our lower left here, this card is showing in a pie graph of that 1,500 properties, how did those play out by process type again, right? And so remember, kind of at the right here, we have our legend for the colors in this pie chart. And again, we have that hover functionality that can really dig us into the detail of what each of those slices are, and obviously becomes much more useful as we dive into those, kind of smaller, tiny slices, where on these bigger slices, we're kind of able to see that labeling that goes along there, although that hover detail is available there as well. Okay. So that takes care of our portfolio tab. So next up, we're going to take a look at our tax credit allocation tab. Now, this is a tab where you're going to see the availability of a filter. Okay, so you can see that we have this control area kind of up here at the top of this tab, like we saw in our development tab. Now, the filter that we see here is for our cycle year. Okay, cycle years, something sort of akin to fiscal year in a dev deal, but cycle year is how we think about our tax credit deals. Same scenario going on here, right? Our default is that all is selected. We can deselect all and then scroll through the values that are available and select the year or years that we want to look at. Okay. One item to note too, in both this cycle year dropdown and that fiscal year dropdown on the development deal, the listing of years that are available here are years that are in the system and that have data available for us to look at, right? So, like I don't see 2018 because there's no available detail in my 2018 cycle to look at. Okay, so know that's the system trying to guide you a little bit to not, return yourself an empty graph or empty tab here. Okay, so I selected years, cycle years 20 and 21. And so again, same concept here, right? We've got our cards with, our TCA deals. And then a little different kind of view that we have here, we're looking at TCA deals that are coupled with a dev deal, right? So kind of a blended deal scenario. So, and then of course our graph presentation down below. So across the years 20 and 21, I've got 18 active deals. I can then see kind of a little different card view here, kind of a graph presentation, if you will, that shows me of those 18 deals, how many are 9% competitive, how many are 4% tax exempt. So we're seeing that breakdown. And then special programs is that final one. And I don't have a scroll, but I do have a hover over. So this is a good example of where I might use kind of this expand. Like I can see that there's another group or section being displayed there. So I could expand that tab and then I have a little more visibility into what is that group that's being displayed, what's the labeling there and whatnot. So good example of using that expand and collapse. But remember, you still always have that hover over functionality to kind of clue you in and let you know what you're looking at there. So below that kind of stacked view of the those deals by cycle type, Then we're looking at deals by cycle name. So, here we're getting a bar graph view of, what was that? The 18 deals. And then we're seeing how those are dispersed across all of the various cycles that we have defined for each of the years that we have selected. So remember, I have 20 and 21 selected. I can kind of see that up there in my filter. So for 2020, I've got a 9% competitive. I've got a 4%. For 2021, I've got a 4%. For 2020, I have a disaster cycle, right? That's that special program cycle. And I labeled that as a disaster tax credit cycle. In 2021, I have a 9% competitive. And then I also have in 21, a 9% supportive housing as well as disaster funds. So I'm seeing the disbursement of those 18 deals across those actual different cycles across those years. Okay. Again, same hover concept, same, expand and collapse available there as well. Okay. So let's take a look now at this kind of newer section that we have on our tax credit allocation tab. We're looking at TCA deals that have a dev deal coupled. Okay, so for 20 and 21, we have 7 deals total that are blended deals is what we call them, right? So then let's take a look and break these down and look at some more detail here. Of those blended deals, we've got 4 that are 4% tax exempt. We've got 2 that are 9% competitive. And then we've got 1 that's special program. Okay, so that's that breakdown. Then we kind of come down to this bar chart and we're looking at, again, these blended deals across, dispersed across the many cycles that they live within in their respective years, right? So, again, I've got my competitive cycles, I've got my 4% cycles, I've got some disaster tax credit cycle there going as well, okay? And again, hover over, expand, and then of course that export functionality if we need it, okay? Okay, that really wraps us up for that dashboard. And so again, this is brand new. This is, we really wanted to put this example out there for everybody to just kind of give you kind of something to imagine as you're thinking about what dashboards would be meaningful for for you, for your team, for your agency overall. And again, I appeal to you, please, any ideas, wants, needs, wish lists that you have for dashboard, please reach out and give those to us. We really want to expand this functionality and make it useful to you. Okay. So this brings us into our first poll question. So Ryan, if you'll go ahead and put up that first poll question, have you submitted ideas to ProLink for new dashboards functionality? Shameless plug again there, but that's an easy yes or no. So we'll let that be open for just a few more seconds here before I give Ryan a countdown, and then he'll share those responses with us. So Ryan, here comes a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you can go ahead and close that poll, Ryan, and share those results with us if you're able to.
Actually, give us a few more minutes, a few more seconds.
Okay. Okay. Am I going too fast? Sorry. Let us know, Ryan. How are you doing?
Okay. Just a second. Okay.
There we go. Okay, so 15%, which is 2 responses, have said yes, they've shared ideas. 85% have said no. So you 85%ers, please reach out and give us some ideas. We're anxious to hear what would be useful and meaningful for y'all. Okay. Okay, let's head on into our second agenda topic here. So this section, I can't talk. The second session here is NCSHA reporting. So I want to dive right into this and I want to talk about some concepts here. So, you know, obviously within that survey, there are like for 2021, I think there are 23 sections. So, you know, we don't have time today to go through all 23 of those sections, but I have put together a few examples that we can look at. What we're looking at here and what we're going to get into here is the idea of using data views to complete these sections that you're needing to fill in for this survey. Before we dive in, a couple of recommendations. As you fill in your response document, save that thing and save it onto one of your allocation cycles in the system, just for safekeeping, so that you always have that kind of in a safe spot to go back to. Just a recommendation there. Another recommendation that I'm making is, as you start to dive into these sections and you create these views for yourself, and I'm recommending that you create your views and label them for the NCSA section that you're responding to. And you could even put the year on them if you wanted to. I would leave the year off though, because the idea is that a lot of these views that you'll create in data views, you can reuse these every year with filtering to help yourself answer these sections. So Ryan, help me with timing. I can go all the way till 2 o'clock my time, correct? I think that's right. Ryan, you're on mute. But so I'm going to at least highlight, a handful of these examples that I've got here in the slide deck, and I've created these data views in the system. So I do want to show you though, like I said, each one of these slides, I really am showing you what I'm going to be showing you here live. So if you need this, if you need a reference to kind of get yourself started into creating these data views, this slide deck should help out a little bit with what data view to use. And then I give some information about, kind of what you could do within the advanced filter. And we'll talk about a little bit more detail here when we kind of get to the next slide. But so section 1, right, they're really asking you about what's in your 8610. Okay. So, some of you may have joined Sarah's session just before this one was, learning how to populate that 8610 in the system. So, you can hop right in the system and, pull that data if you're able to get in there and start using that functionality. But so that's the suggestion, which I'm sure y'all know for that section 1 of that survey. So let's head into kind of some of the kind of deeper, more gooey, confusing sections in here where we're really trying to get numbers and whatnot. So for that section 2, housing credit applications, units receiving allocations. So what we're proposing, what we're looking at here is using within our TCA section, our properties data view. And I've created a view there. So I'm going to go ahead and break out of this slide deck and let's go live and look at this data view that I've created. So again, I'm letting you know, obviously our folder's TCA, right? A lot of this information that you'll be filling in for the survey is going to come from TCA. So then I'm using my properties data view. So I can click into my properties data view here. And so remember, we're looking at section 2-3, right? So you can see what I've done is I've labeled these data views, NCSHA sections 2 through 3. This is my data view. It tells me exactly what I'm going to be getting and what I'm going to use this for. Now, a couple of things that I want to point out in all of this reporting that you're doing for NCSHA and kind of in reference to kind of the examples that I've given you in the slide deck today. Some of this reporting and how you're going to pull back these numbers of deals and dollar amounts that they're asking for and whatnot. This is going to be how you do your own data view and how you do, some of your filtering is going to depend to some degree on how you're using some of these fields that are available in the tax credit deal. Okay. So for example, in my demonstration environment, my building allocation types are AC rehab, new construction, and rehab. Okay. And so that's how I'm grouping in order to try to fulfill what is being asked in section 2 through 3. And if I show this really quickly, so we see here section 2 through 3. In part C, they want to see a breakdown, by new construction, substantial rehab, AC rehab. Okay. So my point there is that as you're starting to look at creating these data views and thinking about going after these numbers, you may have a little bit different building allocation types, and that's okay. You can just do a translation for yourself of what the building types are and how you categorize those into what they're asking for. Okay. It doesn't have to match exactly, but definitely something that you can, add in your notes, like, in your view manager, where you're creating your advanced filter. You can give a description here in your filter description and tell yourself, this is, data view detail, building allocation is grouped as such, right? If you have larger, more groups, and you're going to have to group them together to fit into what they're asking, tell yourself, right? Your future self will be happy if you record that in that description there, so that when you come back around next year, you kind of don't have to think about it quite as much. It's kind of what we're going for there. So, and then of course, we've got some filtering going on here, right? Like, for that section 2 and 3, they don't want the 4% deals. Because we're looking at properties, which come in stages, we have to look at the most current stage. And then we want to look at things that are past kind of that initial application, so that we know that we're including deals that are really going to, have a chance of going. So we're reporting the numbers that they are really looking for. Okay. So, and again, I've included the advanced filter screenshot for each one of these data views in the slide deck. So you don't have to try to like memorize this or frantically jot this down. It's available in the deck so that you can kind of chew on this later on. So then as I kind of return back to this data view, we've got a couple things that I want to point out for what they're asking for kind of in this section. First of all, and I kind of spoke to this a little bit earlier, you can see that I've included the cycle year here in this data view, and I'm filtering by the year that I'm trying to report on. Okay. And so by building this data view this way, or this view within this data view, this allows you to reuse this year over year over year, right? Because you can just filter to the year that you need. Okay. Now, I'm, again, in my demonstration environment, I'm looking at 2020 because that's just where I had like some decent data to make like some pretty looking numbers here. So that's why I'm looking at 2020, no other particular reason. So next you can see that by this building allocation type, I have indicated in my data view administration area that I want my building allocation type, my credit amount issued to sum in whatever grouping row is included. So because I'm grouped by building allocation, I'm getting those credit amount issue sums by my grouping. Okay, so that kind of gives me those sums in those grouping rows right there, really give me these numbers that I'm looking right here for credit dollars allocated. Okay, and so like you can see, I've gone pretty detailed in this slide deck for you. Like, so, number 4 here, these numbers that you need in this section, then in the data view itself, this is number 4. So this is where you're getting those numbers for. So I've tried to give some pretty good detail for you here in the deck. And again, this is in the deck, so don't worry about trying to write all this down. And we won't have time today to go through every single field and all of the examples that I've provided, but I want to hit on a couple of these so you kind of understand how to use these things. So another item, and let me mention too, I'm speaking to you about this ability to have this credit amount issued sum in this grouping row. And we're also going to look at this summing in our footer rows. These functionalities, these items are available for you to configure on your data views within your admin panel. And so, if you're familiar with this, think about, telling whoever your ProLink admin is kind of some of these kind of selections that you're going to need in your data views. If this is a new concept for you, that's okay. Reach out, holler at us, and we can walk you through how you can do these configurations right in your system so that you can, as you're going through and creating these, you can get these numbers totaling for you. Okay. So again, we talked about this, credit dollars allocated. We've got the estimated total here in number 2. And again, I've done that sum in footer for credits requested there. They want to know the number of developments. We're using the record count that we have here, right, for our 2020. And again, remember, we excluded our 4%. So, that's that number that they're looking at there. Number 5, we want the, the count, the number of the units, right, by these different, oh my goodness, what is happening here? Wow. Sorry. Sorry, my slide deck's going crazy. I apologize. That might have made people dizzy. It made me a little bit dizzy. I apologize for that. Anyways, in number 5, we're looking at the count of units, right, by those building allocation types. So again, you could do, and I didn't do a very good job in this example. I can come back and update this. What slide is this? 19. You can do sum and group for your units there to get your unit counts. And then of course your total units. And then you'll do a subtraction to get there to your market units. Okay. So that's that's a quick and dirty into that section 2 and 3. I think I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to break out of the slide deck and I'm going to take a minute just to show some of the other data views that are possible to help you fill out this survey. And like I said, I didn't do all 23 sections, but you know, excuse me, I did a section 4 through 5, 4-5. Similar concept here, right? Let's look at our advanced filter for our 4 through 5. Again, here we're still in our properties data view, right? So we still have this concept of stages. So I need my most current stage, yes. Here in section 4 through 5, I am looking at those tax exempt bond finance developments, right? So I'm really targeting my 4% deals here, right? Versus my section 2 through 3, that was really targeting my 9%. Now I'm looking at my 4%. And then of course, doing that same filtering of looking forward or looking at deals that are past that kind of initial stage, right? To give these true numbers. So again, that advanced filter is included in the slide deck. As well, you know, I've got kind of that detailed screenshot to show you kind of which fields and, you know, totals and summing rows that you can use in those sections within that survey. We've also got the same concept here of, again, you know, including cycle year so that I can just filter, right, by the year that I want to report on. And then again, gives me that reusability year over year. Okay. You can see just in my property data view, I've done section 2 through 3, 4 through 5, 8, 11, and 12. Okay. Now I've also got, and I'm going to scoot ahead here in my slide deck. I've also got some views that I create in my TCA unit mix. Okay. So again, unit mix within my TCA section within my data views. And same idea, right? I've created and named these views so that, you know, year after year, I can go back and use these. And in unit mix, I've got sections 7, 9, and 10. You know, again, you can see kind of similar concept to what we saw within our properties views that we created. We include that concept of cycle, right? So that, again, filter down to the year that I'm trying to report for, gives me that usability, you know, year over year. Obviously, you know, as the survey changes year over year, we may have to come in and do some tweaking into these data views, but still, you know, reusable year over year, like I said. Okay. So I'm going to come kind of back into the slide deck here. And I just, like I said, we don't have time today in a single hour to go through, you know, every single one of these sections, but I just wanted to, you know, show you guys that I do have, you know, these different sections kind of detailed for you in the slide deck. And in some cases, like in section 7, where you're doing production by unit size, you're actually having to come up with percentages. So I also included an example of exporting the view from the data view to Excel and calculating that percentage. Okay. So just showing some examples of that there. And again, don't worry about trying to write all this down or memorize any of this. It's here in the slide deck for you. And you can interrogate this and chew on it as time allows. But I wanted to try to give, you know, a pretty good sampling for you of a good number of these sections to at least get you started in creating these views. And I want to remind you that, again, depending on how you might be utilizing, like that building allocation pick list, right? You'll look at my example and you'll kind of extrapolate to, what are your building allocation types and how will you group those and the like. Okay. I think we get through section 10, section 11. And again, detail there to show you kind of how to get to these percentages, exporting to Excel. If anybody's interested in those Excel files, I saved them. You could take a look at them if you wanted to. I'm more than glad to share those. It's just demo data. There's nothing that, will hurt anything. And then I think we end with section 12 there. I did just kind of make a reference into, the nonprofit allocations specified in your QAP, just gave some samples of some of my customers' QAPs with hopefully not identifying information, but those of you who are there are going to kind of recognize your stuff. But just a nod to pulling that kind of information there out of your QAP. Okay. So that brings us to our second poll question. So Ryan, go ahead and put up our second poll question. And that question is, how do you currently perform your NCSHA reporting? You can select all that are applicable. Are you using ProLinkHFA software by chance? Is it an entirely manual process? Or is there other software that you might be using, or some combination of these things? So go ahead and hopefully Ryan's got that poll up for us, and y'all can think about that and kind of mark your answers there. We'll leave this open for a couple more seconds before I give Ryan the countdown. Okay, Ryan, do you think, are we good? I'm going to give you the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I can see when Ryan gets the results to me. So let's take a look. So about 67. Ooh, Ryan, it's kind of hard to read. Help me out. About 67% of you, it looks like, are using ProLink, about 4. Manual process, about 2. Doesn't look like anybody's using other software right now. Okay, thanks for participating in that poll, guys. And then we head in here to our last section. We've got, just under 10 minutes left. So, I want to take us through our income and rent limits reports. So, and again, this might be a refresher for a lot of you, but I kind of wondered if some folks might not realize or remember that these reports are available. So if you go into your main panel, you'll see the reports menu option. And then you're going to see asset management folder and then compliance folder. And then all of these income limits reports are listed here. Now, some of my customers, you all are publishing your own reports. So you're going to see additional folder structure going on here. So it'll look a little bit different than what we have here in the slide deck. And that's okay. But let's break out live and take a look at just a couple of these limits reports and just see what's available. So again, remember, I'm in my main panel here at the left. And then, I don't know, 2/3 of the way down or so, or maybe a third, I've got that reports menu option. So as I click into that menu option, I then have available all the possible reports. I've got a few more, which are borrowed from one of our customers. So I'm looking for my compliance folder here. So you can see we've got both home and LIHTC income and rent limits. Okay, so I just want to drop into a couple of these reports and kind of refresh and remind, how these reports work. So I need to select a year that I want to look at these home income limits for. The list of years that you see here, kind of similar to what we saw in our dashboard. Years listed here are going to be years that I have income limit information loaded into my system for. Okay, so like as an example here, you can see I don't have 2019 and 2020 home income limits loaded in my system right now. So this drop down doesn't offer that, because what's the point? I would just get an empty report, which is kind of a pain in the neck. So just maybe a little helper function there for you. So I can pick 2022 for my year. I then need to pick the AMI percentages that I want to look at. I can choose all of them. And then we have this concept of this report footer. So, a lot of you might use these reports to publish on your website. Or to share with your partners in their Procorum work centers. And sometimes you have to put an agency disclaimer. And so this report footer text box allows you to do that. Okay. So I just kind of put in a generic agency disclaimer there. And then way over here to the right, I can click my view report button. And so now my report's going to render. So I can see that my agency logo will be included in my report. This is, again, I'm in my demo environment. So this is just general ProLinkHFA. My agency name, my, report title, this is home, effective date, and report run date are all included in that header for me. And then I see by county those percentages that I selected. And then my income limits per person. Okay. So, if I didn't select, let's say I didn't select the 80 and the 100, I wouldn't see those rows listed here in each of these tables. And so then as I scroll down to the bottom of my page, you can see here at the bottom left, there's that agency disclaimer. So that's where that will be included on that report for you. Again, if you're going to share this outside your organization, you might need that. As is kind of standard with all SSRS reports, all reports, you can export to Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, CSV. You don't need data feed. PDF is probably the more likely selection that you all would be using to publish those items on your website. Okay. So that's our home income limits. Let's look at our home rent limits. Same concept here, right? Pick the year that we want to look at. Only the years that are applicable are offered. I have the ability for a disclaimer again, and I can simply click view report. I don't have to select percentages for my rent limits. I get, as you can see, my low, my high, my fair market, right? Fair market rents, we need to know those for home. And then my 50 and 65, okay? Limits listed by bedrooms, again, sorted by counties, same header information we see here in this report, same possibilities for export, okay? So that's our home income limits. We have our LIHTC income and rent included in one report, and we have options to look at LIHTC by county or by property. Okay. So, I mentioned to you that some of my customers will generate this report by property and provide this on the work center, the Procorum work center for the property. So when you do that, the property has no go back or circle around to say that they didn't know what the income and the rent limits were for their property. Okay. So a quick look here into our LIHTC income and rent. We do have our national non-metro limits are included there. Now, just like our rent and income, you have to enter the information for your national non-metros, and it's in that same utility area where you load your, or I'm sorry, in your data view area where you look at your income and rent limits in data views. Okay. So next, let's see, we've got our national non-metro, we've got our HERA hold harmless. And again, we've got the percentages that I selected 30 through 80. We've got up to 8 people. And then of course we have those rent numbers available there as well. Okay. And, again, sorted by county. And you've got that mean county income there as well, kind of in that left label area. Okay. Let's take just a quick look at our by property. And we'll look at 2022. Let's just look at 40, 50, 60 for this one. And then of course, because this is by property, I choose, one or multiple properties that I want to look at. I'm going to go ahead and look at my always favorite Garden Court Apartments. And I've got, my report footer functionality. This is available on each of these income limit reports. Okay. So, looks pretty similar to my by county, except it's just for my specific property that is selected. My property information is included in my header there. I have my national non-metros there. You'll note as well, the other thing that I do get is the building names that are included in my property. So a little extra information there for us. Okay. And so I think that rounds out, and I am a little bit over time, everybody. I apologize. I think, Ryan, that means that we can't do our last poll question because I think our chat closed. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that is the case, but it's okay.
That's okay. Our last poll question was just asking, who uses income and rent limits reports out of ProLinkHFA for publishing on your website. So we'll try to pick this one up maybe next year if we include this session again. So again, I apologize for going over. Thank you so much for your attendance, and I'm going to hand it back to Ryan now.
Right. Thank you, Kelly. Would you stop sharing your screen?
Sure.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Kelly, and thank you everyone for joining the session. Let me just share my screen. I hope you found great value in this session. As a reminder, a copy of Kelly's PowerPoint is available right here on the Attendee Hub. And you can also come back and watch the recording of the session anytime. And even after conference is over, you have access to the platform for next 90 days to watch any of the session recordings. And the survey is available on the right side of your screen, so please provide any feedback you might have on this particular session. You can type in any outstanding questions that are not answered during the session. Okay, and that concludes day one of ProLink Tech Live 2022. So thank you all for attending day one, and day two will begin tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll start the day with ProLinkHFA What's New session, followed by Procorum use case panel, and 2 additional ProLinkHFA software training sessions. If you head back to the conference homepage now, you'll see the 3 people listed on the homepage who won gift cards by participating in Coffee and Bagel today. So we encourage you to continue participating in Coffee and Bagel tomorrow. So there are 3 more to come, and have a chance to win a gift card for yourself. And have a great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you again for joining ProLink Tech Live.
Thanks, everybody.